Hello, welcome to another episode of the Horror Vision Horror Podcast. I'm Sean,
I'm Missy.
And I'm Anthony, your beast of burden.
and we are going to talk about a movie that is brand new in the theaters. I've been very excited to see this movie for quite some time. This is Late Night with the Devil. David Dastmalchian is the star. This is written and directed by Colin Carnes and Cameron Carnes. So we are going to talk. No spoiler first. This is just going to be a generalized, like us pushing people to either go see it or stay away from it, give you our opinion, how we reacted to it, and then we'll give you ample warning, listeners, and we'll go full spoiler so we can talk about it because we have not talked about it. All three of us saw it within the last 48 hours and dying to talk to you guys about it. So I just got to say, all I'm going to say is I'm really rooting for David Dastmalchian. This cements him. I just really fucking like him. I like his comic book, Count Crowley. I loved him in Boogeyman. I loved him in Last Voyage of Demeter. I loved him in the only Suicide Squad movie, and I loved him in this. So, what did you guys think of this movie, Missy? Without spoiling.
Okay. I really, really enjoyed it. It's still early on, but I think it's going to be in probably my top 5 of the year. I don't usually like any of the found footage kind of stuff, but this wrapped it in a new package that made it very immersive without doing all of the things that make me hate found footage. I think that it tells a unique story. It does it in a unique way, and I really liked it. And I think it has a good payoff at the end that makes it all worth
it. Anthony, what did you think?
Sadly, I didn't enjoy the movie. At one point, I got so bored I fell asleep. I think about 5 minutes had passed, and I kind of bugged my eyes open because the guy that was off to the right of me was like laughing at every little bit that was supposed to be funny, and and he was just going, ah! It was ridiculous. No, I tried to get into the movie. I think I had my own expectations of what I wanted it to be and kind of what I thought it was going to be. And we'll get into that later on during spoilers. But again, it was shot well. Dastmalchian did a good job. Everybody else was serviceable. I'm a little tired of the slow burn that gives you a quick punch, in the last 15, 20 minutes of the film when there's just a lot of stuff that seems like filler in the in-between. There are a few moments where the story alludes to things that, I would like touched on more or expanded upon, and it's only given to you in blips. And by the end of it, yes, you do get the full story, but it's kind of, I don't know, I needed more. And overall, I felt like the presentation was a bit safe, which, leads me to believe that's why it has such a huge score, like on Rotten Tomatoes and stuff like that. It's a little too safe, but maybe that's just to appeal to a much broader audience. At the end of the day, that's going to bring those production companies a ton of cash. But I mean, here's to hoping anyway, because I went and saw the film on Friday evening with 4 other people in the theater, so we'll see how that goes. But overall, I wasn't too jazzed about what I got. It probably won't make my top 5 of the year. Right now, stop motion is still pretty much sitting on the top of that pile. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I'm not going to say it's a shit movie. It's not. It is a good film, but maybe I'm not the audience it was geared toward. But that was my thoughts on that.
I feel like I think I may know what you wanted more of. And I do feel like in thinking about that in my head, because I also wanted more of it, but I was fine not getting it. Mm-hmm. But its format does hinder it from exploring certain things that it teases, right? Because it's and and it is. I see. Even I feel like even the press for it has mentioned found footage, but in a way, I feel like it's not found footage because found footage implies that it's like it's shot
Hand cam.
by people. Yeah, hand cam. Well, I mean, that's the mechanics of found footage, but found footage implies that it's people documenting something, and really,
Mhm.
this isn't them documenting it. It's presupposing that it is showing you professionally filmed television, and
Right.
so I also like I had no idea what I was getting into, other than a certain '70s aesthetic and Des Melchin, and
Right.
obviously the devil to some degree, right?
Hmm.
I had no idea it was going to be so in that, like, no, this is a late night TV show circa
Right.
1977, and that's what it is.
Hmm.
So that's what you watch, like, other than the newsreel footage at the beginning and the interstitial stuff that's like the supposed, which I guess could be the found footage element, is like somebody backstage documenting what was happening between, like, on the commercial breaks with the characters, right? And it definitely. See, I feel like I am the audience because I grew up watching David Letterman on NBC in the 80s. And I watched Carson. I wasn't a Carson fan, but as a kid, I was a young kid. I watched Carson, I watched Letterman. I love Letterman. And so I'm very familiar with that format. I
Hmm.
just thought I loved seeing them present that format and then tweaking it into a horror concept because
Right.
we've seen so many other things be tweaked into horror, and that's something that I was like, wow, they're really like, okay, this is like, no, we're gonna watch this show. Like, this is like
Right.
we're inviting him into our homes, Jack Delroy. So I liked it a lot for that, and I thought the end of it, I was like, I feel like it's a fucking VHS, one of the VHS, like the effects and stuff at the very end. I'm like, this is right in line with some of the stuff that VHS has
Hmm.
done that I've been iffy on, but here I really liked it. I think that's just because VHS often rubs me the wrong way.
Same.
Um, but yeah, I mean, I would definitely say I think people should go see it for sure. I think it's going to be in the theaters for a while. It's got a healthy buzz. I think, Anthony, you're 100% correct. I think that it's done in a way where it'll get a little bit more widespread
Hmm.
appeal, or like it'll draw in an audience that it maybe wouldn't have otherwise. But I think people are going to be scratching their heads because in a way I was like, I was ready for it, but I think other people are going to be like, what the fuck? And at my theater, so you had 4 people. I had, I'm going to say 12 to 15 people. Missy, how many people do you think were in your theater?
Um, Probably like 4 or 5, but it was 4 o'clock on a Thursday. I mean, I go at that time on purpose because I know it won't be that peoply. It's, so, I mean, it's hard to judge because I tend to go at times when it's never going to be crowded.
See, here, this is only playing two shows. It's in Clarksville. It's like 6:05, which is what I saw, and then like 8:45. That's it. Nothing else.
Oh, no, here it's
So,
got like a normal spread of times,
okay.
except for on Thursday because it was the very first day. So those usually are like 4, 6, and 9 or something. But
Okay.
now it looks like it's got a full array of what they normally would. But I mean, I agree with you. I think that while I didn't watch those shows like you did, my mom did. So
Hmm.
I was exposed to them. So as soon as it started rolling into it, it it just took me there. Like
Hmm.
it put you right back in the early 80s, and my mom was a big fan of like Donahue and Geraldo and that crap. So it felt like those kind of shows.
That was interesting too, because like the Carsons and the Lettermans are a totally different kind of show than the Donahues and the Springers and all that, right? And you could really look at like the talk show, like those daytime talk shows like Donahue as being like Donahue's probably I didn't watch it, but I was aware of what it was, right? He was a little bit more like not hyperbolic, and then you'd got like Morton Downey Jr. and
Geraldo.
the Geraldo and ultimately Springer, and that shit was all staged and ridiculous, and just they used this hyperbolic bedlam to get ratings, and so it's interesting to see that this guy doesn't exactly do that, but there are moments where you're like, oh shit, he's kind of like doing the Springer before Springer was a thing. Like he's that desperate for the ratings, which I don't know. I really like David Desmalchian. I'm
do
rooting for
too.
that guy. I am rooting for him.
Well, he's popping up in a lot of things. He was in the first Dune too.
Oh, really?
Yeah, not a real big part. The character dies, but I mean the character dies in the book too. But I mean, he was in the first Dune. He was recently in Boogeyman. I feel like we just keep seeing him pop up places, and it was nice to see him get a leading role
Yeah,
because he carried it well.
he carried it really well. I still like. I think when Anthony and I saw Demeter, I think afterwards we were talking, and I was like, "Wait, who the fuck was this Melchin?" And when you told me, I was like, "Dude, I watched the whole movie. I didn't even know that was him. Had no fucking clue." And after rewatching The Boogeyman a couple months ago, I think his is probably the best performance in the movie. I mean, I mean, not that any of the other ones are bad. I just really feel like he brings it in that small role.
It's a very important role.
Yeah,
He's not on screen long, but it's a very important role, and
yeah.
he did do well with it.
Yeah, I might have liked the film a bit more had I not been sitting 3 seats away from the fucking Joker. But
I was gonna say when he's laughing, like at some point you turn around, you're like, Shh. He's like wearing a full clown suit.
dude, even during the trailers, when we were getting trailers, this guy was losing his fucking mind watching the trailers. I was like, this guy's insane. Like, don't get me wrong, I like the insane, but it's pipe down. You know what I mean? Pipe down, sir. No, Desmalchian did a great job. I mean, as far as his delivery goes, and like you both said earlier, I mean, he's shined in other roles, even in bit parts he's done, like Dark Knight. There's just stuff that he's done that's
He
incredible.
was in Dark Knight.
Yeah, he was one of the Joker's henchmen.
Oh, in the beginning, like the robbery.
No, later in the film.
Oh, okay.
When Eckhart's character, Two-Face, he has him at gunpoint. He's going to blow his head off. That's Desmalchian. And then Batman shows up. You're the best of us. Blah, 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 whatever, all that shit. But that was Desmalchian.
I remember the scene. I didn't remember him being in it.
Yeah, like I said, everything this guy is, touched, he's done it. He's added quality to whatever he's done. And that's not to say he didn't do that in this film either. But again, the film was just geared toward a different audience.
Right.
You get your shock and awe at the end of the film, and unfortunately the shock and awe wasn't enough to like carry over and make this like, oh wow, this was really worth the wait for me, and it just wasn't, unfortunately. Not saying don't go watch it again. Like, I feel like this is a bigger indie film. I mean, so definitely go support it. But yeah, I don't think this will be making it into my collection or anything like that. But then, maybe on subsequent rewatch, I'll enjoy it a tad more. So I'm not willing to rule it out 100%. I just really wish that this film maybe delivered a little more on what I was expecting. But that's okay. I'm not the creator, so it is what it is. And
right.
Well, I must be wrong somewhere, because if it's got such a high rating on Rotten Tomatoes and user ratings are through the roof, shit on me. It is what it is.
Well, I don't think that makes you wrong. I mean, nobody's wrong, right? But
different opinions.
Yeah, I don't go by Rotten. I mean, it's not. I've said this before. I don't have any problem with Rotten Tomatoes. My thing with Rotten Tomatoes, I don't feel like they're going to recommend something to me that I think is bad. I think a lot of movies that I like, if I went by their scores, I wouldn't have seen. You know what I mean? Like, so I just anything that takes that wide of a berth of opinion, I mean, it's not going to line up with me. So, I mean,
Fair
maybe
point.
periodically, right? I mean, a clock is right twice a day, but he's
Yeah.
in a lot of fucking stuff, man. Like stuff I had no idea. Like he's in Prisoners. He's in Twin Peaks: The Return. I mean, granted, these are probably all small parts. I've watched Twin Peaks: The Return a handful of times, and he's a pit boss in the casino. I do not remember him, but it's probably a very fleeting role. But so okay, well, should we go full spoiler?
Sure.
Lead the way.
All right, listeners, if you haven't seen Late Night with the Devil, please turn us off now. Come back later, or don't come back. Just go see the movie. Full spoiler now. So what you wanted more of was the satanic cult in the trees, I'm assuming.
Well, that and just the kind of expectation that I had that they were going to do like mass possession in the audience.
Oh,
So
Oh,
I was hoping
okay.
to get like a Demons feel, like with everybody stuck in the theater, and I was hoping to get something like that. That would have been really over the top. And yeah, of course, the cult stuff and demigod and whatnot and all that stuff would have tied in fantastically. I thought that would be just there you go. There's the full bore gut punch you need, full of splatter that's gonna fucking work. And when it just kept going and going and going on about all the backstage ongoings of the running of the late night TV show, which again, I mean, in writing, this is what it's supposed to be. It just bored me to tears. Well, actually, bored me to sleep rather. And yeah, I was really hoping to see more of the cult stuff. Obviously, I think that's like the main thing that I want to see. I'm like, okay, let's hear more about what happened in the tall trees. Like, I would love to fucking explore that more. But for budget's sake, and I'm still curious on whether or not that imagery was AI or not. I don't know if you guys read about any of that. There's a bit of controversy going on now.
Yes.
Missy mentioned this. The only AI in the movie, this just baffles my mind. The only AI in the movie are the title cards,
We'll be right back.
we'll be right back. So
And like some of the cutaways.
why they would bother to so it sounds so first of all I read after Missy pointed this out because I was like what the fuck was AI, and when you sent me that thing, Missy, I started reading online and I was like, so it was before the strike, and really it was like when they made this a couple years ago they were just fucking around with it, so it was before it was an issue, so it wasn't like a lot of a lot of the shit online that is poisonous about this movie is like they used AI or whatever, blah blah blah. They put all these people out of jobs. It's like no, that's actually not what happened. It was technology. They're like, oh, what can we do with? Okay, that's fine because this Mulchin and the directors in interviews went out of their way to say like, no, we had like a lot of creative people working on everything about the movie. That was just like technology that was there. It was like, oh, let's just do this with it. And yeah, but it is such a, because I'm thinking, you think AI, you're thinking like it's actually doing something, like an effect or something. No, not at all. It was just still weird, still imagery.
Yeah, it's used to create landscapes as well, especially like I follow a couple of AI like art pages on Instagram and stuff like that. Some of the stuff that comes up on there is honestly beautiful and haunting, and it leads to curiosity. So yeah, there's that one scene though of the tall trees and you can see like the stone,
Yeah.
idol or whatever it is that they're worshiping. It just kind of looked like an AI image. But I did read that article that said that they only used it 3 times specifically in those cards that they
those will be right back.
Yeah. So I mean that's the only times they used it. But yeah, that one scene did look like AI to me. I don't know if it was or wasn't. Apparently they only used it on these 3 other scenes.
Right.
But yeah, it's odd that it's causing controversy. I don't hate what AI is. And I, for one, welcome our new robot overlords. So,
thank you, Ken Brockman.
I'm glad you got that.
Oh, you do goddamn right. Oh.
But no, I mean, obviously, when it does like hit the ground, when it does find its ground and really starts moving, yeah, the cult activity is what I did want to see more of, and it sucks that it's just brief flashes, and for something that's supposed to be a document or a mockumentary rather, um, like I don't see why they wouldn't cut out, some of that.
I
But go ahead.
I think what Sean was saying about the format hindering
That's
it,
why.
because back then that's when like everything was, we were going into the satanic panic era. They weren't going to show a lot of that, and none of
Because
those
it's not
talk
a
shows.
mockumentary or a documentary,
Right,
right? It's literally just this is the
it's
show that was filmed.
right. It's the
So
Late Show with like David Letterman or
yeah.
Jack Delroy.
So just that newsreel stuff at the beginning, and they couldn't go into it at the beginning. Now, what I think is if this is successful enough, we could get a movie that is an actual movie that would be about that cult. That wouldn't even necessarily have to have David Desmalchin in it. It could, that would be great. But I
Right.
feel like they've seeded a story that we could explore. But it's kind of like, look at it a little bit, like I don't even think it had to do with the budget. I mean, the budget dictated what they wrote it as, but they wrote it as like this and that has walls that kept it from doing those things, unfortunately. But I was fine with it because I think like, okay, well, I would love to see more of that in the future. I'd love to know.
I mean, I've seen plenty of films that are all shot in one room before, fucking 44-inch chest and so on. Like, there's a ton of stuff like that out there that's executed well. And I mean, I get what they're trying to do with, keeping it, limited to just the television set and whatnot, or this TV show set anyway. And again, it's serviceable. It again, I was just hoping for something much more grandiose, and with Shudder stuff as of late, I mean, and up to and including a film that we're going to be speaking about later on this evening. Like again, you pretty much basically have one setting, and they know how to fund stuff that can knock it out of the park. And I was just hoping for a little bit more, even if it was just for more of that cult stuff. I didn't mind the gore that I got in the end. I mean, we'll go into kills or deaths later on in this, but I do think that there was a lot of really cool parts with Desmalchin, coming to terms with the idea of like, what have I done? Like, who did I make a deal with? What have what are the real ramifications of the mumbo jumbo I signed on to? And I think that those horrors are obviously what's scary. That's the unknown for him, and it's cool to see that kind of stuff come to light a little bit more as the film progresses on. But yeah, I just, again, I'm beating a dead horse at this point. I'm not going to get what I want out of this movie. So
Right.
please, you guys, elaborate more on what you loved about it.
But no, I mean, and I think I was at the opposite end of the spectrum because I wasn't feeling well. So I was very able to just get into it and take the ride. But hearing what you were hoping for kind of makes me sad that we didn't get that. But I hadn't thought of it at the time. I thought it was really cool when we start getting the scenes with with Lily, where they're talking to her and they call out, the demon that's possessing her, and they kind of overlaid the two faces, the girl, and then I think it was the cult leader's face, but it had a really unnerving effect that I wasn't expecting. Because like her hair is in her face and then she looks up and the face is all wrong. My uncanny valley triggers really easily anyways, so
that'll do it.
it was a really unnerving effect that got under my skin that I thought was pretty cool, that I wasn't expecting. I hadn't seen it done that way before.
Whereas I just kind of saw that as like tropey
Okay.
exorcist stuff that you see in any other exorcist film, where whoever has a demon in them usually has a fucked up face, and I'm like, okay, but what is that? What else is that supposed to look like? You know what I mean? So
Right.
I mean, who knows?
Hmm.
Because I haven't done very many exorcism as of late. But yeah, so I mean, it's just stuff like that where I'm like, okay, this it's cool that you're giving it to us in this format, but this also isn't something I haven't seen before. You know, this is
Fair
very
enough.
very run of the mill. Again, that safe playing field that kind of appeals to everyone. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That's
I
all.
I think
I
I
get
think
that.
the thing that wasn't so definitely like the Exorcist stuff was based on things we'd seen before. I think the idea
Hmm.
that was new here was marrying that with like the Letterman format, right? So that was
Hmm.
the I have to say, so Des Melchin again knocked out of the park, but Lily Ingrid Torelli,
I think this is her first
fucking
film.
dude, she was unnerving from the fucking moment she put her
Hmm.
face on screen. Like there was not a moment I was looking at her that she was not giving me the heebie-jeebies, and just her
Hmm.
whole demeanor, the way she spoke, the way she constantly called him by his name. Well, oh yeah, Jack, I'm here. You know, like she was very, very, very effective. She really freaked me out. And then I also thought Ian Bliss played Carmichael Haig, the oh my God, I thought he was fucking fantastic. And the whole hypnotism scene was really like, I'm like, okay, they're not exactly breaking the fourth wall because they're referring to a television audience because it's a television show, but they're also kind of referring to us. And like there were a couple moments in both that scene, the hypnotism scene, where it was Haig hypnotizing Gus. And then there were a couple moments, or really just a whole scene of Lily and June, her handler, doing the whole possession thing. I had
Hmm.
chills, and it doesn't happen
Hmm.
often. Man, I don't know. It was interesting, and I feel like it didn't do what I didn't really have any wants with this. It didn't do anything like I thought it was going to do. And in fact, when the end happens and like her head splits open and we get into the VHS, territory. I'm saying VHS is in the movies, not as in the format. Um, at first, I was fine with it, but like I know I really like the movie because I feel like I would not have dug like I didn't. It wasn't what I would have asked for or wanted, but it was. I'm like I've never seen this confluence of styles and textures and narrative. So I was totally fine with it. But it was just really I've not seen anything like there are elements of it I've definitely seen before and definitely are based on things, I think purposely that we've seen before. The Exorcist imagery especially, but
Hmm.
it was just not like other things. Like they just I had no idea where the movie was going the whole time. The only thing I had to kind of hang on to as far as expectations was literally I know the format of this type of TV show from that era. That was it.
Hmm.
Like that was the only thing I had. So because like I didn't know they were going to bring out a girl because I literally had only seen the teaser. I had not read anything about it. I was avoiding it because I was so highly anticipating it. So they first bring out Faisal Bazi as Christo,
Hmm.
and I'm like, is this what this? Like I just didn't know where we were going. So it was, I don't know. It was interesting.
All right, favorite death. Hit me.
I I didn't really have one. I feel like the deaths were like not really a major
Right.
component of the movie at all. Like they were all kind of the same. One neck got snapped, one got bent back and sprung open, and one person burned, and one
Hmm.
person I guess died off screen in an ambulance. But like I didn't have one. They were incidental. It didn't matter.
Yeah, I felt
You?
Yeah.
like that was the only payoff during the movie for me. So that's what.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I was fine with it. It's not always about like there's a lot of movies I love where I'm like, there a bunch of people die, but I don't have a favorite death. I kind of feel like
Right.
that's reserved for like slashers, or not just slashers, but
Mhm.
you know, um,
Where you get lots of creative, like variety of death.
yeah. But this was just pretty straightforward as far as like, I mean, it was weird that her head cracked open and did that weird. That
Hmm.
was just so fucking strange, man. I was like, what are we going for here? I was fine with it, but I was really just
Right.
perplexed that they went there. I mean, it was just like, okay, not
Oh,
what I would have
honestly,
chosen to
the
do, but
the thing that really like kind of got my attention was that whole weird hypnotism season sequence with the worms. Like
yeah.
I was not expecting it, and it was just weird and unnerving, and I don't know, like I didn't really know where the movie was going either, and I think the whole point is that it wants it wants to immerse you into its world, and if you can, then you're going to have a good time, but if you're not feeling it or you've got other expectations or something, because I've had that happen with other movies
Oh
where
yeah,
I just
same.
couldn't give in and take the ride. um and this movie depends on you being able to do that.
I mean, honestly, like I was really invested in Jack's character. Like I felt
I
the
was too.
whole the story about him and his wife, and like I was I'm rooting for the guy, and that's why I felt like this Melcher was such a great choice because I'm rooting for him already. Like I went into this going, I
Hmm.
root for this guy, I like this guy, and so that translated well to that character because I was totally like. You know, the whole thing where then like they have this wife on there and she's got the fucking scarf and the fucking the breathing apparatus, and then 2 weeks
Hmm.
later she was dead. I was like, oh fuck, man, that sucks. You know, like
Were you still rooting for him by the end of the film?
yeah, I still don't know. I mean, I guess I'm gonna have to see it again. I didn't feel like he was,
Right.
and I feel like what I said earlier about how he was kind of going Springerish for rating. Like it wasn't quite that bad. Like to me, Springer always was and always, you know, I mean, he was a piece of human garbage, but I didn't feel like that about this guy. And so I mean, I feel like if they're implying he was the reason that his wife died, he
They directly
clearly,
imply it.
well,
Yeah,
yeah,
they
but
do
he
imply it,
clearly
but
didn't know that. He didn't know what he was getting into, right? So while he's responsible, I don't feel like I don't feel like he was malevolently like, yes, I'll trade my wife's life for fame. I didn't feel like that at all. And in fact, like he didn't really get I mean, he was definitely famous, right? But the whole story arc is like he's always chasing, like he
right,
just
he's
can't,
struggling.
yeah, he can't quite get there. Like he no sooner signs the 5 year deal than like the wrap up of, you know, the whole arc of it is like, well, by the end of that contract, you know, they're pretty much ready to get rid of him. So I was still rooting for him for sure.
I think I was too, because he didn't like it. Yes, it's definitely implied, but I don't think he was malicious. Like
No,
he
I
was
don't think
in
so at
over his
all.
head, and I don't think he realized it until all of these things started to come together on the show, and he realizes, oh shit, I'm in over my head.
Yeah.
And
I thought
as
there was
things
a
were
line
unfolding
where
with the
he,
girl.
yeah, I thought there was a line where he said, "I didn't actually think they were going to do something." So, I mean, I feel like it's implied that he knew full well what was going to happen when he aligned with whatever he aligned with. But I feel like that's outside of signing the contract. You know what I mean? There's again, that's all stuff that's touched upon probably what happened in the tall trees that we'll never know.
Right.
Hmm.
So, you know, blah blah blah.
I would love a movie that got into, I mean, because there's like a little bit of, you know, obviously Xandor, the cult leader, which I loved that the footage where they showed that.
Hmm.
I was like, holy shit, like a late night show that would show this in 1977. A, it wouldn't have happened, but like B,
Right.
like, you know, where they're like all dragging the fucking dagger through their palms and then they're like meshing their
Hmm.
bloody palms together and shit. I was like, fuck, man, wow. Um,
Yeah, that's really graphic for 70s late night TV.
yeah, right. And then like the whole, you know, the because it's June narrating that at that point, because it's part of her, whatever her, you know, like they're referencing what she's produced as far as a documentary or whatever, and she's talking about the allegations that this Xandor and his cult like breed children for human sacrifice. I was like, man, that's some fucking dark ass bullshit right there. So there's like LaVey obviously is referenced. I feel like Jack Parsons is definitely referenced. And that whole like Pasadena like element chapter of the Crowley's organization. The name's I'm escaping me. It's late, but I don't know. I think that they, especially that era, right, where the '60s and the hippy dippy shit and the acid turn into the '70s and black magic and fucking heroin and I just feel like there's a lot to explore there, and I always love stories set there or anything. I mean, it's just a great texture. I mean, like Uncle Ass and the Deadbeats is a band that like everything about their aesthetic is that exact era, and it just works 100% for me all the fucking time. And that's just like music or like, you know, like imagery on an album. So Brubaker and Phillips Fatale, there's so many things. So I would love that. I'd love this do well enough for them to be able to make another, like an actual movie and like just go with it. I think that'd be fucking amazing.
Mm-hmm. I do too. That would be cool.
Closing thoughts?
Just that, I mean, we always say it, support the independents. If it sounds interesting, check it out. I mean, see what you think of it. Draw your own conclusion. But I liked it.
I did too. I'd say go see it.
I'd say if you're paying for Shudder, wait till it comes to Shudder.
Fair. You notice how many fucking production company, I notice this all the time. I'm going to start counting. There had to be 10 production company title logo sequences at the beginning of this movie. It was the most I think I've ever seen.
Trolling me. Yeah, I thought they were trolling us in the beginning of it. It's like, really? They're fucking how many production companies are doing this?
So that's, you see that more and more because it's like that's what it takes to get an independent movie made. More and more people have to contribute money to it, you know. So
yeah,
right.
But yeah, I definitely would say support it, go check it out, and yeah, that's Late Night with the Devil, and it's Late Night with the Horror Vision, and I'm gonna go worship Satan. So I'm Sean.
I'm Missy.
I am Anthony.
A pandemic of violence floods the streets of major cities as cases of the media-dubbed murder virus, MV20 soar, causing those infected to go on killing sprees. Caught in the middle, police detective Angela Miller finds her only trustworthy ally in the self-proclaimed psychic PI, Gerald Henry. As the two try to navigate the violence, they are drawn into New Age guru Abramelin Harvest's plot to heal the planet. Harvest's missive?
The world is sick, and humanity is the infection.
The cure? Murder. From the twisted mind of Sean C. Baker, author of A Collection of Desires, and Shadowplay Book 1, Kim and Jesse, comes his most vicious novel yet, Murder Virus.